passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Framingham, Massachusetts. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that if you see a talking teddy bear with a bag of weed, please press your call button, not to narc, but because here at TVPL, we believe sharing is caring.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how you doing today?
Oh, I am running on 64 ounces of Dunkin' Cold Brew and 10 Munchkins, and I am ready to talk about this show.
Oh my gosh. Well, Max, this week we are talking about a movie that was turned into a TV show in Ted. But before we dive too deep into this Seth MacFarlane property, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes in making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And before we dive too deep into Ted, a quick word from our sponsors.
Hey there, frequent flyers. This week's episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside has been the go-to platform for TV Pilot's License when it comes to recording this podcast. You can record crystal clear audio and video all in one place, and when you're done, Riverside makes it super easy to edit your show and put together pre-formatted clips for social media promotion. Not a podcaster? Not a problem. Riverside is fantastic for hosting live streams, creating educational content, putting together marketing materials, interviews, and so much more. So whether you're looking to finally get that podcast idea off the ground or take your show to the next level, Riverside is the platform for you. Get started by clicking the Riverside link in the description of today's episode.
Well, Max, let's start off with a quick synopsis. After his moment of fame passes, Ted, the foul-mouthed teddy bear, moves on to a working-class Boston home of his best friend, John. I love that they state it as if maybe Ted lived somewhere else and didn't have to move back home. But Max, before we dive too deep into this pilot, can you tell us a little bit more about how this movie got turned into a TV show?
Today we're talking about the pilot episode of Ted titled Just Say Yes, which originally aired on January 11th, 2024 on Peacock, and the show's creator Seth MacFarlane a bit. A graduate of Rhode Island School of Design, alma mater of the OC Seth Cohen canonically, MacFarlane studied animation in college, and his thesis film, The Life of Larry, would eventually serve as the inspiration for his most successful project, Family Guy. After graduation, he took a job with Hanna-Barbera, working on Cartoon Network series including Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Laboratory, and Cow and Chicken. From the time he was at Hanna-Barbera, MacFarlane hustled to try and develop and sell Family Guy to a network. He was introduced to the heads of alternative comedy at Fox, who after the success of King of the Hill's first season, offered MacFarlane a deal to produce a pilot for $50,000. That show has certainly recouped well more than the $50,000 spent to make it in the years since. Fast forward to present day, and after 2 successful Ted films at the box office, Universal wants to develop a TV series for their streaming platform Peacock. Mark Wahlberg, who starred in the films, was unavailable for a TV project, and the series was tooled around into becoming a prequel, exploring the timeline from the first film's prologue. In June 2021, the show was given a straight-to-series order. Filming took place at the Universal lot in August of 22 using new tech called ViewScreen, a playback tool developed by MacFarlane's Fuzzy Door Productions, allowing for special effects to be viewed in real time instead of having to wait for post-production. This allowed the production team to view their fully CGI lead character in all their dailies. CGI is not cheap, however, and has been reported each episode of this sitcom cost upwards of $8 million to produce, potentially making this the most expensive sitcom ever made per episode. In addition to writing, producing, and starring as Ted, today's pilot is also directed by Seth MacFarlane.
I mean, the idea that this costs $8 million per episode, I before we even dive into this show, how does that make you feel as a human being?
Icky.
Yeah.
And this is what, a 7 or 8 episode season 2? Because we're in the streaming era where sitcoms don't have time to breathe, which means that you basically spent a movie budget. You could have made multiple independent comedies for the price tag to make 7 episodes of spin-off TV.
The other thing that I want to talk about, Max, that I sort of, we have a trend that we're starting to do on this podcast, which is we have these people who are very famous for creating one type of IP, and we're like, let's not do that yet. Let's do the other thing that they made that maybe isn't known. Like, we've done Joey, and then we're like, but what about Friends? No, fuck that show. Let's do Joey. And now we're on to number 2 with this, with
I know,
Ted.
our heads for the Orville are really going to be mad at us this week.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's dive into this show a little bit more. And last week, we talked about the 80s, right? We were fully on the young Sheldon train, but we're taking it a little bit back to the future with the 90s, but not before, Max. We get a ton of exposition, and being that this is a TV show, and there were 2 movies before this TV show came out, what do you think of this exposition that we get?
I think it manages to fix the problem of how do you make this show work for people who aren't familiar with Ted. And if you have somehow made your way to Universal streaming platform of Peacock, not familiar with the Universal property of Ted, good for you. But we get essentially 30 seconds to recap and restate the exact same exposition that kicks off this film franchise of a young boy wishes upon a shooting star for his Teddy Ruxpin to come to life. The bear becomes a local celebrity of sorts. Celebrity and fame get to his head and he burns out stupendously. And now we are living his life as a has-been in small-town Massachusetts.
Yeah, and I mean, as soon as we get this and we get this foul-mouthed teddy bear, I do really like that as part of the synopsis of the show, because I think it's a great explanation of what we're about to see. We are immediately with the Bennett family, made up of our core 4 plus Ted. And I mean, what are your thoughts on this cast of characters, this non-traditional nuclear family that we are being brought into in the 90s itself?
I think this is the obviously biggest way to separate it from the film franchise. We are taking it back to the youth of John Bennett, the character played by Mark Wahlberg in the films, and we're expanding upon that with all these family characters. To me, though, this whole first sequence, this dinner table, this essentially riffing round table, feels like what if we tried to stretch a riff into a pilot.
Yep.
Because I'm not learning about anyone here. I'm not getting a lot of information about anyone's real wants, their needs, who their characters are. It's just a lot of what I've come to expect from Seth MacFarlane.
What if I told you, Max, that I saw the cast of this show like a girl dinner? Right. And let me explain for our audience, if you aren't familiar with girl dinner is something that represents dinner, but it's a lot of pieces of a lot of other things, right? Small things making up a larger meal. And when I look at this dinner table of sorts, right, there are a lot of small things that I do enjoy, right? I enjoy Scott Grimes. I enjoy Alana Eubank. I enjoy Max Burkholder, and I enjoy Georgia Wingham. But with that said, this entire pilot, and I want to just start off talking about this. Do we think that this pilot was maybe a bit long at 51 minutes and could have been a nice, tight 30-minute pilot?
Oh, absolutely. And what I think this pilot suffers from, and if you agree, let me know, is that we essentially have 2 episodes where there's just a chunk kind of knocked out of the middle to sort of fuse them together. Because we're going to cover 2 stories essentially over the course of these 50 minutes. There is a very big why is today different that leads us into a true pilot that then kind of goes down a tangent into an entirely new direction, and we abandon any resolution of that first episode and focus entirely on the new problems created. And so suddenly we've skipped that time that I think we want to use to get to understand this family beyond just jokes. And we skip over it in favor of like a Ted hijink that I don't know if it's totally warranted yet.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the other things that I find so interesting about your comment about the dinner table is this is not just something that happens once, where we have a singular scene that we were like, what if we made a pilot off of this dynamic? And we did a lot of scenes like this grouped together in this girl dinner medley. That is the analogy that I'm going to keep on doing until it sticks in this podcast episode. But the thing that comes to mind for me is, does it feel like this show was almost built for social media? And what I mean by that specifically is the idea of, it feels like every single scene was made with the idea of, oh, that can be a short on YouTube. That can be a reel on Instagram. We can put that on TikTok and people will be like, what show is this? I would love to watch it in 25 parts on a vertical screen. Did you get that sense at all?
Yeah, I did. And it does feel like it is, to your point, just made to be consumed in bits and pieces. And I don't know if that has to do with the Family Guy of it all and the MacFarlane style of comedy, where it's just hammering out joke after joke after joke after joke in lieu of development. But it did just feel like it was throwing as many things against the wall and seeing what sticks. And I do think that MacFarlane has a lot of highs as a writer, and I think he has very specific visions and very specific likes, but I think oftentimes he defaults to spoof over like satire, and it's just like too much of the surface level, whether it's A Million Ways to Die in the West being just like cheap fodder instead of like really getting into like the history of that genre in the way that Mel Brooks does with Blazing Saddles, or the way that Family Guy is just kind of influenced a lot of comedy to shift into like riff machine humor. And I don't know. I feel like there's something more that could have been explored than just jokes about race that make up the first 10 minutes of this episode.
Boy, are there a lot of terms that I was just like, oh, I didn't know.
Please enlighten us. Say a few. Say a few on air.
As two people who were born in the 90s, I did not realize we were throwing out those terms as commonly at least not at my dinner table. I know at the Singer household, a little bit of a difference in situation.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks, yeah.
But, Max, we are literally talking about a pilot that costs $8 million an episode because of this CGI bear. What did you think of the bear itself? Like the CGI being such a heavy part of this pilot. And did you think it was pulled off well?
Ted looks great. Like I'll just say that. The actual animation on Ted looks fantastic. And the facial movements and the physical movements, this sequence of Ted at home alone for a day and what he does, and just seeing the way they can move this creation throughout the house and get into all his activities looks phenomenal. But like that's a lot. That's a big but. Ted would laugh at me saying big but, I'm sure. But he does look wonderful. I remember seeing an article when the show came out. They were talking to Max Burkholder about him wanting to try to improvise on set and being told by like an assistant director that his improv just cost them $50,000 because now they had to reanimate Ted.
Jesus Christ. That would make me, like, even as a non-actor, that would make me so uncomfortable on set to just have that pressure behind you of like, hey, this better be a fucking great acting choice. Otherwise, this is just going to be a waste of money altogether. Like,
yeah, and the joke is the joke because we cannot afford to animate this more.
Like, literally, that also, it just limits the amount of the people that you can get, right? There is a certain level of creativity that's been allowed on Hollywood sets these days of the allowing someone to take another take just to try something else new or try something different. And it feels like you lose that. And especially, sure, I don't think either of us are suggesting that this was a set where, it's the one take. You get one take to try this out. Rehearsals are super fucking important. Don't fuck this up. But there is a sense that's associated with this of like, hey, you better nail it in a certain number of takes or we're really costing the studio or the likelihood of you having a job next season because of it.
But even beyond Ted, I think this is a very good looking show. I think that it has great set design. It is a bright, vibrant color palette. They make excellent use of the universal backlot. I love all the fake facades. The Bennett family household is the exterior from the Leave It to Beaver house. Like, there's so much history and great color throughout this set, and it looks really fun. It feels, in many ways, like an 80s movie. It does have that type of sheen to it, and it does sort of suck you into a world of screwball comedy that you are probably familiar with, just shrunk down for a smaller screen.
So, Max, I feel like we've been talking a lot about maybe some of the technicals of this show, and we could talk about the show for, we can be one of those podcasts where something's 51 minutes and we talk about it for 2 hours, but I'd like to move on to the idea of what did we think about the plots that are given to us for this show? Because it does really feel like 2 episodes of television, but I want to hear from you. Did you think either of these plots were compelling enough?
I think the Why Is Today Different that starts this is very simple, which is Ted's getting into trouble and needs to go to high school. Ted has to get, on the straight and narrow and is going to join John in high school. And that is simple, that is easy, that is repetitive. It sets you up for a million hijinks. And unfortunately, we don't dig far enough with it because I really do think that 30 to 35 minutes, given the streaming era, of just Ted in high school and resolving an issue with John and Ted in high school is where this pilot needed to go and needed to really establish this relationship. Because, yeah, Ted going in on day one and saying, I am making it my mission to get expelled, hilarious. I think that sets itself up for so much potential, and I just wish we hit it harder.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, even in those introductory high school scenes, I was like, oh, like this is fun. Like there's something here, right? We have the idea of focusing on a place, and maybe if high school is everything where 80% of our action happens, and then we have the other set, which is the home set, and then like the occasional episode where it's like, oh, it's the 90s, let's go to a mall, let's go to like a grunge concert one week and like pay for that set. I don't know. It's the fucking 90s, man. Let's go.
It's 1993. They love Counting Crows.
Yeah. Oh, that would be... I would actually pay a lot of money. I would help pay for the $8 million to see Ted at a Counting Crows concert.
Great band.
But, I mean, the thing that sort of turns it for me, and I'm curious for your thoughts, is there seems to be a very clear point in this pilot where our Ted character finds out that the only way he's going to get kicked out of this school is if he has a drug of some sort on him. And we turn this from a high school comedy into a drug humor-based comedy because we find out that the cousin, we find out that Blair is selling drugs, and Ted and John are going to be smoking pot for the first time and getting into all the hijinks that are related to that. What do you think of this second major plot itself, and did we even really need it in this pilot?
It has my favorite individual sequence of this episode that I'll get to in a little bit, but it also, to me, is where plot-wise we derail the episode, because I think that you can establish what lengths Ted goes to in future episodes. Like, this could be something that goes on further, and I want to spend more time in the high school. We get one classroom scene, and it gets completely derailed by a long-running riff about how bad the teacher's life is for a very Seth MacFarlane-coded button of a joke from Ted.
Sure.
And all the time we spend doing that, we could have been exploring more locations in the high school, more of the day, more of how him and John play off of each other in this setting, because now we're going to get into they want to secure drugs. How do they score drugs? The drugs tie back to another character from this ensemble and her situation and her circumstances. And now we're developing all these other B, C, D, F plot lines that are just, it's too many things being thrown out and not enough focus on actually developing the relationships and the world we're in. It's like we're going too far out too fast.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I was asking myself during the middle of the show, which was, why is this show 51 minutes long, right? There's a very clear delineation between the plot A, the first half of this pilot, and what we get into in the second half of this pilot. And I'm asking you to put on your producer hat of, why do you think they thought they needed to make a 51-minute long pilot episode of the show when every single other episode is around 30 minutes?
I'm literally like, was there something in the contract that stated if season 1 was 9 episodes instead of 8, you had to pay people more money? Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around why this needs to be over 50 minutes long, because there is no good reason. And so much of that time is spent doing these long MacFarlane riffs where we beat the hell out of one conversation instead of moving our plot forward or building upon relationships. There's just no reason for this show to be 51 minutes.
Yeah, it is really confounding, right? To be able to look at this show and, you know, I shouldn't be able to look through a pilot episode of television and say with a big old like Sharpie, we can nix this scene, we can nix this scene, we can nix this piece of dialogue, we can nix this entire character, right? There's a character that is the Sheila joke that we get in this pilot. We didn't even need that character, and I'm very happy for that actress, and I hope she got a great day rate. But at the same time, I'm sitting here being like, what is the, was there someone who was like, what if we, in the, you know, the writer's room, what if we cut this scene entirely, or what if we shorten this joke? Like that is what I'm left with for after 51 minutes of watching this episode. But I mean, Max, do you want to talk about how we resolved some of these conflicts and how we're left at the end of this episode, maybe going into a week 2?
Yeah, and to kind of just tag on really quick to put a button on this, it does feel like maybe they said this needs to be an episodic sitcom and we're not going to serialize this. I have not watched more of this show to date, so I don't know if they follow storylines throughout it. But unless you are saying we absolutely refuse for this to be serialized and everything we do must be resolved, and so that means this week we're going to have to resolve a whole lot and go long, I don't see a reason for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was your question?
Just so deep in thought. No, I mean, I guess I'm curious. Were there any of the resolutions that we end this pilot with? Some of the final beats that you liked, that like left you even with a glimmer of, oh, maybe next week, or, you know, they released all of these episodes all at once. Maybe I'll click on that next episode because I liked how this show ended.
You know what? I actually do like the arc that they're setting up for this character of Blair Bennett, the cousin who lives with the family in the room above the garage, as sort of the black sheep of the Bennetts. She's the more progressive, like-minded, even-keeled, liberal, living with them, trying to find ways to pay for school and pay for rent. And it does seem like her story has a little bit more depth, and I want to see how she gets dragged into the John and Ted dynamic. I do like that it feels like we take a character who's an outsider, and by the end of this, we bring her into the fold a little bit more. I like what we're doing with that. That is good world building. It's good character building. We get an arc there with her. I just wish we could have condensed the time we took to get there.
Yeah,
What about
I
you?
think that's I think that's a super solid point. There's I want to get into things we love really quickly to talk about what I loved about this pilot, because I loved Alana Eubank in this pilot so much. I think it is sometimes when you watch something and you see some underwhelming writing and you see someone take that underwhelming writing and just like be like, I am going to put my entire fucking self into this and embody this character. The mom character in this show, the Susan Bennett character in this show, was so oddball and just stood out so much to me that anytime that Alana was on the screen, I was like cracking up. I was just like, yeah, no, this is wonderful. Her going on the diatribe, which, yes, was a little bit too long, about how there was a woman who made fun of her in high school, and then she saw that she didn't have a hand, and she was wondering if she was going to go to hell and if she should make her a singular mitten. Yes, I was cracking up during that entire thing because Alana was selling the shit out of that moment. But there are some really good individual jokes in this pilot. The Ted shooting a rifle going down a slip and slide, I was like, yep, if I made a CGI bear, I don't know how I'd come up with that, but that is the funniest use of a CGI bear.
The animation on that is so great. And the animation on Alana Eubank's face is so great, too. She is such a good physical actress. She embodies the character. Her facial emoting is so well. It adds such a layer to the riffing. I do think she gives a really, really strong comedic performance.
I mean, Max, what about you? What were some things that you loved about this pilot that maybe you'd like to give a little bit more shine to?
The sequence of John and Ted smoking weed for the first time in their Sunday best, and the sequence that follows to the song Lowrider, and the reveal of them slowly walking down the stairs, singing the instrumental to Lowrider, got the hardest belly laugh out of me in this entire pilot. That is a good use of an extended sequence, and the reveal of that joke is so good. And yeah, that was absolutely my literal high of the episode.
Yeah, that's what makes this pilot so upsetting. Is there were literal fucking gems, and I'm slamming the armrests on my chair. There were gem jokes in this pilot that got belly laughs. And
I just can't help but think, if this is 30 some odd minutes, just centered around the first day of school, just centered around all the places we go to and what John and Ted learned from each other of just being in the school world and not getting into
Maddie Bennett charging Blair rent or any that is a clear episode 2 of wait, why does Blair live with the Bennetts if they aren't her mom and dad? That's a great episode 2 arc. That's your classic, like, let's get some more exposition about each of these characters arc in this sense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It feels like there is half of an episode 1 and half of an episode 2 here. And if they were 2 standalone stories that were fully fleshed out with a little bit more in each act, I do think that there could be something really funny. Because, like I said, I think Seth MacFarlane has real highs as a writer. I think he also has real lows as a writer. And I think that there are just some, giving in to bad instincts to blow this out to 51 minutes that really needed to be reined in.
Yeah, I mean, what about wait a minute moments? I guess I'm curious because we haven't been the most positive boys on this episode or the most positive pilots, but I'm curious about if there's anything particular that stood out for you that caused you pause.
Goodness. I mean, I think for me, it's just so many locations and it's so many threads. And I'm just going to kind of continue on this point that I was just making of there is so much happening in Ted that gets dangerously close to what if this is just Ted 3 and Ted 3 is a prequel. And we were one celebrity cameo away from these being why are we doing TV and not just drawing this out to a made-for-TV movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a super fair point of there could be a exclusive on Peacock Ted 3 prequel where it's Ted and John going through high school, right? And different moments and like watching them have to deal with high school life. Yeah, personally, I would hate to say the entire second half of this pilot is my wait a minute moment. But I will say that the entire idea of Scott Grimes' character of Maddie Bennett is just an entire wait a minute moment. Like there's sometimes where there's a character where you're just like, oh yeah, they're a buffoon and they're gonna be causing jokes. But when you already have a bear that curses and is pretty racist, or like, you know, the median of racist for Boston, like I don't also need racist Boston dad. That's not a necessity in this pilot whatsoever.
Everyone's kind of weird world here, and I see what you mean, where it's like a lot of the jokes that Maddie is making are the same jokes that Ted is making.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need two of the same character. I think it would be really fucking funny if we had like straight-laced dad who like still can do whatever job. I forget what jobs Maddie has, but like he can still do that job. He can still be a slight drunk, but I just need Ted. I need Ted to be the asshole who's racist. I also don't need Maddie in this instance. Well, we do have one more question, Max. And this question came from Instagram. If you have a question you'd like to submit to the TV Pilot's License, make sure to follow us wherever you are on for social media. We take those every week. You can also submit a text or a voicemail at 213-290-1713. And you can go to tvpilotslicense.com and fill out our form. But this week's question came to us from Terry in New York. And Terry asked, did you have a stuffed animal growing up? If so, would they have made a good TV character if they were alive? So I'm asking, not only did you have a stuffed animal, Max, but what was the personality that you associated with your stuffed animal? Would they be a good addition to the TV world? Or maybe, hey, we're going to pass on this pilot?
You know what? I did. I had a big ass stuffed lamb named Lammy. And when we got a dog, when I was a little bit older, we used Lammy to fill up the back of the crate when we were crate training the dog. So Lammy's been through a lot. Lammy kind of got the short end of the stick with having to become like puppy training cushioning there. And I do think that Lammy would make for good TV. I think that Lammy experienced a lot in its life. It's had highs, it's had lows. I like to imagine that personified Lammy would be a foul-mouthed bighorn sheep or ram of sorts. And I think there's a lot we can play with there. So if anyone wants to make a Lammy with me, we can kind of do like a foul-mouthed lamb chop situation, I'm thinking here. You know, I could be the Sherry in this.
Yeah, I mean, I would buy into Lammy for sure. For myself, I had two. I had Nosy, who was a bear that had a leather nose, and Nosy was a dude, right? Nosy still is in my childhood home. He's vibing, maybe a little bit too chill for TV. I don't think he could carry a pilot, which is why we bring Barney in. Barney the dog. Barney was like a red Cocker Spaniel like esque figure, like absolutely just a great vibe of a dog. And the inspiration for me as a kid wanting a dog every single holiday season, and my dad just being like no until finally I broke him, which thanks Dad, I did blackmail you into getting us a dog. But you know, I think that there's a buddy comedy there of maybe someone who's a little bit too high and a little bit too low.
You just said there's blackmail involved. Absolutely, Barney has to get a studio feature.
Yeah, exactly. But Terry, thanks so much for that in-flight question. Well, Max, let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. This show had 2 seasons and 15 episodes. And you'll notice I said had 2 seasons. And that is because as of March 6th, Seth MacFarlane confirmed that, you know, that $8 million per episode that you mentioned? Little bit too expensive for them to be able to plan on having a 3rd season. So the show has effectively been financially canceled to this point, which I don't think either of us are going to say, oh no, the horror. But Who knows? I'll ask you at the end anyways. Yeah, as far as the release, they chose to release both of these seasons on one day and release every single episode, which, based off of Peacock's strategy, is a hit or miss, right? Because I remember when the paper came out, we were very concerned that that was all going to be released on a single day, and they are green lighting that baby until the sun don't shine in this instance. As far as awards, 5 nominations and no wins for a mix of different things. The Astra Television Awards, which are a streaming focused category of awards, as well as the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. But yeah, that is the history of this show. And Max, as our flight comes to a land, I have 2 questions for you. The first question being, based off the pilot and the pilot alone, would you watch more of Ted? That next episode button went up so goddamn quickly. Do you want to watch more, you big dum-dum? Just let us show you those ads unless you have Peacock Premium Plus, which I did not know was a thing until watching this pilot. And then the second question is, we talk a lot about the idea of TV shows going into movies, right? But this is one of the first shows that we've done that has done the reverse. 2 movies and then the demand potentially for a TV show. Is that something you're intrigued in, or would you rather just have a third movie that is streaming only? So, Max, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'm looking down at my notes, and I'm kind of scrolling towards the end here, and I've got back-to-back. We've strayed so far from this feeling like a pilot, and I'm checking out written one after another. And that kind of sums up how I feel, in that there are individual moments that I could cherry pick and say, this made me laugh, I think this has potential. But as far as a cohesive pilot, I'm not feeling Ted. And we've done spin-offs of movies, and we've done things inspired by movies, and those are very different categories. I do not think that shows that are direct spin-offs of the movies themselves are a world we need to explore. For me, you had it on a silver platter of, we already gave the exposition of what this is in the first movie, and now we're supposed to go into that world, and to me, it just didn't click. But there are a lot of shows coming out, more this year even, that I could name, such as The Burbs at Peacock, Cape Fear coming to Apple this spring, that are, let's take a movie and let's take the base idea of it and somehow turn it into an entirely new concept of a TV series. And I think that has more legs to it than trying to make it all part of one cinematic universe together of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to be said of, hey, we like this universe, but let's go and check out other. First, let me answer my first question. No, I'm not watching more of this show. Even though, and I looked, the episode time goes down really, really low. We lose about 20 minutes, which may be the solution to this, but we only care about the pilot. So that is the basis of that. But I think you really hit the nail on the head. There is just some other shows that I'm thinking of. Interview with a Vampire. Dune has Dune Prophecies going on right now. We're seeing The Mandalorian, which is going from a movie to a TV show to a movie, right? And there's all of these different things that are popping up that are finding a lot of success. And I think the key thing that you can sort of do for all of them is the idea of, hey, rather than what if character but young, which Young Sheldon did a fantastic job of, because it wasn't setting up a 3-year period of how this character did. We went even farther back in time. But what if we went into an entirely different portion of this universe and explored that and provided more depth and understanding? And that is the beauty of why the newest Game of Thrones season is doing so damn well, because they were like, oh, this story that we talked about one episode for like 5 minutes, we're going to make that an entire TV show, and you didn't know you were going to be emotionally attached to these 2 people. That's fucking awesome, man. Like, there's something to be said about looking and mapping out all of your episodes and saying, how many good episodes of TV do we have? And if you only have 3, I'm just putting out that number randomly, I don't know if that's associated with Ted, then it might mean you just should make another fucking movie instead of a goddamn TV show and let someone else get those TV show dollars. But Max, that is our episode. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you want to be found. So, Max, where can folks find you?
You can catch me on the couch watching Plinko on The Price is Right, best game of the show, and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me, saying that Sheila is an okay name. If you named your daughter Sheila, that's okay. Yeah. If you have a weird name, fuck yeah, dude. My name's the only proper...
DM us your weird name.
Yeah. DM us how you were named. Because as one weird name person to another, fuck yeah, man. But yeah, rock on. But if you were looking for me on social media, you can find me at RunJeffRun. If you are looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. I do want to thank the folks who have been leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts, because that is awesome. You can also leave those reviews and those star ratings on Spotify. It does help out. Make sure to follow us on YouTube if you want to see our smiling faces. And if you want to leave an in-flight question, you can submit those at 213-290-1713. We take voicemails and text messages. And you can also always shoot us a DM. We'll take it. Make sure to watch out for our sneak preview of some of the stuff that we have coming up. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial. Da 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 da.